Something strange was happening out in the desert. Radios crackled, trucks moved under the night sky, and people began talking about what they saw near Groom Lake. What could make seasoned watchers grab their cameras and rush to record? It was not the first time the Nevada silence broke with mystery, but this one felt different. The marks on the ground and the covered trucks, each clue pulled the story deeper. So, what exactly were they trying to hide this time? The night it happened. On September 23, 2025, the quiet roads near Highway 375 changed. Radio monitor Anu heard urgent security traffic that night and recorded it. Anu lives in Rachel, Nevada, and has tracked local radio calls for years. His recording included the phrase "asset go down." People who follow those logs treat that phrase as a serious alert. Soon after, drivers and residents reported heavy military movement in Tikaboo Valley. Men in uniform set up checkpoints on dirt roads and blocked access to a wash where tire tracks later showed heavy equipment had worked. Several motorists said they were stopped at a gate near a newly graded approach. A rancher said a helicopter flew low while crews moved toward a desert spot. Some people posted short videos and photo clips within hours. The images showed fresh tire ruts, piles of moved dirt, and covered loads on flatbed trucks. Some clips captured men placing tarps over items and loading closed containers. Those visuals matched accounts from people arriving from different directions. Matching images and accounts helped confirm that activity was happening in specific places. The Federal Aviation Administration issued a temporary flight restriction over the zone. That order kept private pilots and drones out of the airspace while recovery was active. Flight logs from tracking sites showed fewer civilian flights over the valley during the restricted hours. Local pilots and aviation watchers posted their logs and saw the change. Witnesses said crews used covered containers and tarps to move material. Vehicles left the area with loads hidden from view. People watching from Highway 375 could not see the contents because crews used closed trucks and covered flatbeds. Those steps kept many items out of view and limited what could be captured in passing photos. Radio traffic recorded by Anu and others had a tone of urgency. Commands for foot patrols and calls to secure perimeters appeared in the logs. Listeners said the tone suggested an unmanned aircraft and that ordnance might be nearby. That kind of chatter is rare in local logs, and it raised concern among the monitoring community in Rachel. Many locals compared this recovery to other incidents in the Nevada testing region. People who have watched recoveries for years said the speed of the operation stood out. Crews arrived with heavy equipment and left with closed loads faster than some earlier responses. The rapid cleanup made it hard for casual observers to collect evidence, the initial images and radio logs. Officials later confirmed that an aircraft assigned to the 432nd Wing at Creech Air Force Base was involved. Early public statements said there were no injuries and no property damage. Those narrow facts left technical questions about the exact craft and why the area had such a strong security response. The mishap happened on public land outside the guarded fence of Groom Lake, so people could still see some activity from a distance. Drivers reported temporary checkpoints on Highway 375. One traveler described a convoy escorted by armed personnel moving along a graded dirt path. A shop owner said more military vehicles than usual moved through the area that night. Another resident said she saw a flatbed carrying a long, covered shape that could not be identified from the highway. Time-stamped images were posted showing a narrow track where earth had been pushed aside. Some photos showed darkened soil near a small depression. Other images showed short bits of debris and a line of flattened brush where foot traffic had been heavy. Those visible traces created a fragmentary picture that became clearer when matched to radio logs and witness statements. By the 27th of September, the most visible recovery work had eased, and officials said initial cleanup was complete. The few days of intense activity left many questions for people who watched closely. The temporary flight restriction stayed in place during the recovery window and blocked private aircraft until crews moved larger items away. Local reporters began compiling radio logs, images, and witness statements. Those records helped explain when crews arrived, how they moved material, and when airspace restrictions kept civilians away. The combination of recorded radio traffic and time-stamped photos created a public timeline that journalists used as they asked officials for comment. People who watched the scene said the recovery looked methodical. Crews used closed containers, tarps, and flatbeds. Items were moved in vehicles that hid their contents from public view. That practice limited what eyewitnesses could later describe on camera. People in Rachel passed information at the Little Ale Inn and on local message boards. Staff and visitors reported the same checkpoints and low helicopters. Some drivers who planned to stop at the inn turned back when armed personnel blocked the road. Those reports gave timestamps that matched the radio recordings. Observers also saw a temporary graded track cut from Highway 375 toward the Wash. Grader marks and fresh tire ruts showed heavy machinery had reached the site fast. That equipment made it possible to remove larger parts and load them onto flatbeds. Several pictures showed darkened soil near a small depression and pieces of debris scattered nearby. Not every image showed the same marks, but enough pictures included those details for monitors to note them. Short video clips captured men placing tarps and loading covered containers. After visible activity slowed, some groups archived radio logs, photos, and witness confessions. It included time-stamped images and Uig Anu's audio. Those records gave the first clear timeline that began on the night Anu heard the call. But if those were just fragments of a larger mystery, what exactly was happening behind those tarps when the cameras stopped rolling? What the United States Air Force and the Federal Bureau of Investigation say. The United States Air Force at Creech Air Force Base confirmed an incident on September 23, 2025. The base said an aircraft assigned to Wing 432 was involved. Officials said there were no injuries and no private property damage. Investigators began work and released limited details while they collected evidence. Military personnel completed visible recovery on September 27. A follow-up site survey on October 3 found items that officials said were not part of the original wreckage. Those items included an inert training bomb body and an aircraft panel that did not match the wreckage recovered earlier. The new findings changed how investigators viewed the scene. The Air Force Office of Special Investigations took the lead on the United States Air Force side. The Federal Bureau of Investigation joined the inquiry to handle potential criminal conduct. The two agencies working together means the case has both safety and legal questions to answer. Officials explained they would not release technical specifics while the investigation is active. Limiting public details is common when the evidence could be sensitive or when handling could harm safety. That left radio recordings, time-stamped pictures, and witness information as public materials that helped build the timeline outside official channels. Proving that items were placed at the site later requires careful work. Investigators will compare dated images, audio logs, and access records to show when each object appeared. They will check who moved through the area and who had permission to handle recovered material. That process is key to proving whether someone added items after initial recovery. The inert training bomb body is not live ordnance, but it looks like a real bomb. Military units track training munitions tightly. Investigators will review inventory and transport records to see where that training item came from and how it reached the scene. If the records do not match the bomb's presence, that will be an important lead. An aircraft panel that does not match the wreckage raises technical questions. Panels have serial numbers and manufacturing marks. Forensic teams will examine those identifiers and match them to maintenance and parts records. Those checks can show whether the panel belonged to the damaged aircraft or to a different airframe. Safety procedures sometimes require moving or covering parts before full cataloging. Recovery crews may move dangerous items first to protect people. That practice can create a sequence of actions that outside viewers cannot fully observe. Investigators must sort safety moves from unauthorized additions and explain any differences in later reports. The Federal Aviation Administration issued a temporary flight restriction over the site during recovery. That rule kept private aircraft and drones out of the sky while they worked. The flight restriction also reduced the chance that unapproved recordings would capture sensitive items. Federal Bureau of Investigation agents will look for signs of unauthorized entry, deliberate alteration, and other criminal acts. They will seek physical traces such as fingerprints, tool marks, and tire tread impressions. They will review communications, gate logs, and contractor records. If evidence shows intentional tampering, prosecutors may bring charges. Investigators will interview personnel who handled the aircraft before the incident and those who worked on the recovery. They will request maintenance logs, shipping documents, and parts ledgers. They will also check surveillance cameras and access records at nearby facilities. That work can take weeks or months to complete. Officials asked for public patience while agencies work. Investigators balance the public interest with the need to preserve evidence and protect sensitive information. When appropriate, agencies will release more details and findings to explain what happened and why items appeared where they did. Reporter George Knapp and radio monitor Uaganu helped make the public record. They shared audio files and time-stamped photos showing when crews first arrived. Investigators will compare those outside records to official access logs. Those comparisons can help confirm when items appeared and who might have been nearby now indeed. Evidence handling will follow strict steps. Investigators tag items, take dated pictures, and log every person who handles each piece. Evidence may move from the site into secure containers and then to locked storage or a forensic lab. Each transfer is recorded to keep a chain of custody that holds up under legal review. That chain is vital if anyone faces charges. The Air Force Office of Special Investigations brings technical expertise on military systems and parts. The Federal Bureau of Investigation adds criminal forensics and access to federal crime labs. Together, they will analyze metal fragments, fasteners, paint chips, and serial numbers. Even small details like rivet patterns or bolt types can show whether a panel matches an airframe or came from elsewhere. Contractor records may matter. Private companies often support military aircraft with maintenance and parts. Investigators will check contractor shipping logs and work orders to see if any parts were moved in the days before or after the incident. Interviews with contractors and base staff will help build a picture of who had reason to be at the site. Forensic teams will also check for natural explanations for changes at the scene. They will rule out weather, animal activity, or normal where that might explain some marks. Ground surveys and weather data help separate natural changes from human actions. That step prevents false leads. When physical evidence is complete, investigators will compile a report. That report may list findings about the origin of each object found at the scene and about any unauthorized access. If evidence supports criminal charges, the case may proceed to prosecutors. If the work shows safety errors without criminal intent, the outcome may be administrative or disciplinary steps. Please like and subscribe channel.